Kaixo, eta ongi etorri, Made in Spain podcastera.
Welcome to Made in Spain. Very good job, Laura. A lot better than the way I would have said it.
In my head, I'm kind of going a mix of Spanish and Japanese.
It's very different. So we'll talk about the Basque language, but first of all, welcome to Made in Spain. I'm Nalini Sharma.
And I am Laura Senior Garcia, and we are your co-hosts for the Made in Spain podcast. Welcome to season 3.
Season 3, we're doing a little bit of a mini series. So we're going to focus on the Basque region, particularly Bilbao and the surrounding area. We're going to cover culture. We will cover art, food, and day trips.
Awesome.
So our experiences.
And our first episode of this little mini series, which will cover like our first kind of 3 episodes of this season, and then we're going to go on to other topics that we'll talk about towards the end of the episode, is called Bilbao and Beyond: Basque Culture, History, and the Art That Changed Everything.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll give a little bit background here in terms of the Basque region. So it is in the north of Spain. It is its own autonomous community. It looks vastly different to me than, well, I mean, it's green, first of all.
Yeah. So
very
we're
green.
flying in from Valencia in this case, to go to Bilbao. Describe to our listeners the change in scenery from what you saw when we took off from Valencia and what you saw when we landed in Bilbao.
Well, here, sun, there, cloud. Just in a nutshell.
Same day, 45 minutes away.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the north of Spain is typically cooler and rainier. Mm-hmm. We were very lucky that the few days we were there, we had sunshine. So, yeah, we were lucky for that. But the Basque region technically has 3 provinces. Navarra is considered, it's not in the autonomous community of the Basque region.
Was it at some point? Because they share a lot of cultural elements.
I think before it really was handed over to under Spanish rule, the Basque area, that part of Spain was ruled by in the Kingdom of Navarre from AD 846 until it fell under Spanish rule to the Crown of Castile in the early 1500s. So the 3 provinces that exist right now are, okay, I'm going to say this completely wrong, but Gipuzkoa, Vizcaya, and Alava.
And again, the interesting thing is, I think the discussion comes in whether you're saying it in Basque or if you're saying it in Spanish.
I need help with both.
Yeah, so we're getting to a whole different level, but that's just maybe a little bit. So, Nalini, do you want to share as well why north? Like, why did we choose to go north? Obviously, we still have a lot to explore in this region, in the southeast region. We still have a lot to explore south, but we decided to go north. So why go north? Why go to Bilbao specifically?
I've always wanted to go there since I've moved here, and particularly to visit. We'll talk about the Guggenheim. We'll do a bit of a deep dive in a couple of minutes, but I've always wanted to see the Guggenheim. I just think, I thought it would be a real cultural experience. And when we said, let's pick somewhere, we sort of said, we need to go north. We've been south. We've been, we've in our own area, but it was time to go north. And I just want to talk a little bit just about not just the history of the Basque people, but for our listeners to understand that they've had a very fractured history, and they've really fought for their own sort of identity, their own cultural identity. I mean, not all of it has been, it's been also brutal under, with the ETA, and they actually did not officially disband until 2018. So from the late 50s up until 2018, this is what that part of Spain had to deal with, the terrorist group ETA.
Yeah.
But outside of that, when you look at their history, it's almost as if their culture, their language, they've tried to take it from them. Like, integrate, speak Spanish, you should speak, but they have a completely different language, which is
Basque.
And, I mean, the language is called
Euskera.
Yeah.
Euskera, yeah. So we call it Basque. In Spanish, you would call it Euskera, Basque.
Right.
But it is very, very interesting because, I always reflect on it. It's the Basque country.
Right.
Now, it is a country within a country.
It is. However, that's controversial.
It is controversial, and we're not going to get into the politics of it. We're, as we always say, we're not historians, we're not politicians, we're definitely not. What do you call it that we said last time? Cocktail mixologists. We
This
found
is
that out.
our little research, our experience, and I will say that their language is very different. I mean, once you start, you get on the highway and you start reading the signs, it doesn't look anything like Spanish.
No, it absolutely doesn't. So for those visiting Spain for the first time and you think, oh, I'm going to take a trip to the Basque Country, to Bilbao, to San Sebastian, to any of these beautiful places, and expecting to practice the Spanish that you learned in high school, I would say
Good
forget
luck.
about it.
Good luck with that.
And also because when you start getting into certain regions, don't get me wrong, most Basque people, and I would say most, speak Spanish.
Right.
It's not that they don't speak Spanish. But some by choice, some because, like you said, it's the tradition, it's the roots. The same as in Catalonia, they speak Catalan. They choose to speak Basque, and that's fine. And as you said, it is a totally different language. It sounds very, very different.
Completely different.
I actually, as a child growing up in Benidorm, when we were on the beach, and there was a lot of people from the Basque Country that visit this area,
Right.
Particularly, like you said,
because it's sunny here.
it is sunny.
I mean, it's raining there.
Like a quick little funny thing. When I said when we were in Bilbao and went to a hairdressing appointment, and the lady said, where are you from? And I said, oh, this region here. And she said, oh, from the sun. She literally said from the sun because it is very much most of the time more cold, more gray, etc. And I just think that it is very fascinating that I remember growing up listening to people speak in Basque, and I didn't know what they were speaking. They didn't look, from an Asian country or anything like that, but it almost sounds more like Japanese,
Okay.
like I said at the beginning.
So in Spanish, you would say adios.
Abur.
See?
Yeah.
It's not the same.
And
It's not even close.
yeah, and we tried to learn a few words while we were there. I spoke with someone the other day who's from this area that lived there for over 12 years.
Right.
It is just a hard language for us to learn, and for people that haven't grown up around surroundings.
Right.
So lots to talk about. We'll do more of a deep dive on the experiences that we had. Again, we only had a chance because we were there for 4 days to explore
our own ideas.
Our own, what the kind of dates we would like to be taken on. I would say.
Even though we're both married.
Yeah. By our husbands too. Like husbands can take you on dates. So that's kind of those 3 episodes are focused on that because, as we said, to say, hey, we're gonna go and look into and research and cover the Basque Country in 4 days. Forget it.
No, it's impossible.
It is like a mini country, So.
Yeah, and just one final note on their language: it is considered the oldest in Europe.
Really?
It is considered the oldest language in Europe, and it has no relation to any other language in the world. They don't know where it came from. So that's I think part of the Basque identity, their language.
And because it is as old as it is, and because obviously things have evolved, the one thing I will say that's quite funny is you will hear words that sound like a Spanish word that has been turned into a Basque sounding word, like supermercatua, which is like supermarket. Or, you'll hear different things like when you say mobile phone, television, etc. It's things that obviously did not exist hundreds and hundreds of years ago that now exist, and it's like, well, we can't just say
a word,
and then out the middle. So we have to make it sound, like it's part of the language.
Right.
So it is very, very interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's get to a little bit about the history of Bilbao.
Okay, so let's talk about Bilbao. So first of all, I have to say that it's been pretty comical coming back from this trip. A lot of the people that we know that have asked, so how was the trip, blah, 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 that have been to Bilbao before. And I was like, oh, it's great, it was beautiful, it was this, it was that. It's like, did you go to the same place that we went to? And I think part of it is because we were so lucky with the weather.
Oh.
Sometimes you cannot underestimate that.
Right.
We got there, it was sunny, obviously our predisposition as well. So I'm not saying surrounding areas are the natural part, but the city itself.
Right.
So we loved it, absolutely loved it. And I think Bilbao is gorgeous. I'm going to just say that. and we'll get into a little bit more of how the city has evolved in a moment. But I do want to give just some brief historical background. So it did begin in 1300, and it was founded by Diego Lopez V. de Haro as a merchant town. So it is a strategic location in the Nervion River,
Right.
and it did allow them to grow very much. And the port is actually, very, very close in terms of, you have Getcho, you have very close access to the sea, and it was the iron town, you could say. So they did export a lot of iron ore, and it was a lot of the maritime trade was actually happening from there as well. So very industrial city.
Right.
My understanding, and I know we're going to get into the Guggenheim a little bit more, is that before the Guggenheim was built, the city was not in the best place.
No.
It was in a bit of a really big time decline, and it would have definitely, before the Guggenheim, not have been considered a tourist destination.
No, not at all. I think the history of it is quite, it was becoming derelict.
Yeah.
And also what we were discussing, the ETA,
Yeah.
it was a campaign of terror to
Yeah.
liberate the Basque region to become an independent state. So you have decades long campaign by the ETA. I think almost 1,000 people were killed in their campaign over that period of time. I actually know somebody who told me the story of how his parents were approached and basically not blackmailed
Yeah.
into doing things for the ETA. Otherwise, they would hurt your family.
Yeah.
Because his parents were professionals.
So I will say that I think, like with any terrorist group, which is extremely sad, anything taken to an extreme
Right.
is going to hurt a lot of people.
Of course.
And it's going to really impact the culture of the place where you are. So if I think about, you mentioned the Basque Country 20 years ago, the first thing that people would think about in the rest of Spain was
Right.
the ETA.
Of course.
And they would think of, well, why would you ever go there? Spanish people are not wanted there.
Right.
And it is very, very fascinating to me that this time, because I did visit the Basque Country quite a few years ago, and I remember the feeling of a little bit feeling like hostility
Right.
of people. Like I remember asking someone for directions,
Yeah.
and the person turning around to me and answering in Basque. They knew how to speak Spanish. I
Right,
knew
right.
they knew how to speak Spanish. So I learned, and the next time I asked in English, that was the last time. This time is a totally different experience. I don't think we ran into one person that made us feel unwelcome.
Except in our hotel.
Oh yes,
That's another story, but
we'll get that into
any
slice of life. We're not going to recommend the hotel we stayed at for sure.
No, we wouldn't, but I would recommend to every citizen that we met there because they were so friendly, so helpful. I mean, over helpful, actually.
Just not the autograph Marriott staff. No, sorry. we're gonna get blacklisted by Marriott now. But regardless though, as Delaney said, I actually am going to give the award of friendliest taxi drivers ever. To the people there.
No, they would come home with you.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's talk about the Guggenheim. And what on earth is the connection between the Guggenheim and Canada?
Okay, well, the architect of the Guggenheim, Frank Gehry, he was born in Toronto, sort of relocated.
Such a coincidence.
It's a strange coincidence, but he is, I think, lived in Los Angeles, so he's Canadian American, born in Toronto, spent time in America. So the idea for the Guggenheim being located in Bilbao, the government decided that, listen, we have to do something with our city. It is falling into ruins. We have to deal with this ETA. This partnership came about that they would invest the money to build this, spectacular museum to attract tourism.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just about the tourism. It was also that it was a chance for them to rebuild their city, to claim it, to rebuild it, put it on the map as a cultural destination. They built transportation, they put trams in, they made sure that there were other art installations, and I think gave their city and the people there something to be proud of and move away from this, the only thing that you'd ever see about Bilbao was the ETA.
So let's put it this way. If I lived in a city and it had the Guggenheim, I would be extremely proud.
Of course.
Living there.
Of course.
It hands down. So I'm really curious. First impression, when you saw the Guggenheim in person? When we were in the car and we were driving into the city and you saw it, what was your first
Well,
impression?
it's so because it's a building. I mean, if anybody, I mean, I'm sure people have seen it, even online or those who have visited. It's not like a building you will find anywhere else. And Gary actually had to compete. It was a competition. I mean, submit your proposals to do this. And he was the one that was selected. So it took, I think it was from 92 to 97. He was very proud that it finished on time and it finished on budget. So the budget was about 90 million. And yeah, he came.
That may be a first road construction project here in Spain. I'm just gonna say it. Sorry, but it is an amazing building, and I will say this. I've had the opportunity to see the Burj Khalifa, all these like iconic buildings around the world, but the Guggenheim just hits different because, first of all, it's not about height. It's not about, it's just very special. And the other thing that our photographer told us about that, maybe we'll talk a little bit about Olga at a later point, is that it really depends on what time of the day you're standing outside the building. It looks very different because the walls are kind of made out of metal. So depending on the light and the lighting outside, the building takes on a different color and almost a different shape.
Absolutely, and a different feel. I mean, she encouraged us to go back in the evening, which I think we would have done. I have a slight injury, so my walking was not the best. It was not
You
far.
did a lot of walking though.
We'll talk about that injury later. But it's sometimes, yeah, I could not walk really all the way back. It wasn't far from our hotel. And then on another trip, I would highly recommend keeping your ticket. They give you a band when you leave. Keep your band on and just go back in the evening, even if it's just to sit inside and just people watch. It's just an amazing building structure and probably one of the first times in my life, I would say, that I visited a museum and come out with like a feeling.
I could not agree more. And the other thing as well is I don't know how to describe it, but it doesn't really feel like a museum.
No,
It feels more like an experience.
I was gonna say
So,
that.
if I think of museum and I think of like, the art museums that I've been to particularly, yes, some of the paintings you see or some of the things you see are going to make you reflect in one way or another. But I don't think I've ever been in a museum that actually made me feel like overwhelmed, dizzy, goosebumps, and that is actually what happened. I'm not just saying it because we're recording about it or anything like that. We're going to talk a little bit about the installations in a second. The other thing as well is that you can go there for coffee, for breakfast. There's a lot of places in the museum you can access without having to buy a ticket.
Well, on the outside, they actually have smoke show. We did try to stay for it. However, that particular, I don't know, it wasn't working or it was late, and we just said, okay, let's go inside. Yeah. But they have it normally every hour on the hour. So even if you don't go in the museum, there is a lot to see and just hang out. There's a nice little park they have there. And I think that's what the city has done really, really well. There are a lot of public spaces for people to just sit. You don't have to pay money, and it's green and it's pretty and it's landscaped really nicely. And you see kids playing. And I think that's really important for cities. I think that's what we lack here, actually.
Yeah, a little bit for sure. And I think the other thing as well that I would be, very proud of it, I think of like the way that the Guggenheim is going about things is, these days it feels like it costs a lot of money to be entertained. So like, let's say for example, if you go to a concert, Taylor's are selling tickets for $400 or whatever. Everything feels expensive. And the tickets to the Guggenheim are 15 euros if you're an adult.
Yeah.
I believe they have a discount for seniors. If you are younger than 26, they're $7.50.
$7.50. And I think if you're
under 13 or under 12. Under 12,
it's free.
It's free.
Yeah.
So, you can go for not like you can take the kids for nothing. And I do think they're going to be entertained. And we had that range of ages to kind of gauge how interesting this was. Because we had your two sons, and one of them is early 20s and one of them is 13. And we took off in separate directions. And when we came back, we thought, they probably left ages ago until like they had taken in just as much or more than we did.
Actually, I think they took in more than us because I said after, you guys had better learn something. right? Like, come out of here with something, not just something from the gift shop. And then they came back and then they were quizzing us. Did you see this? Did you see that? And we're like,
yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, it was, and they're like, you guys didn't go to that area, but they really took in all the different installations.
Yeah.
They remembered a lot of what they read. I don't know how they did it so fast, but we were just I think we were just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think the amount of times that we said, "Oh my god," and "Wow," "Oh my god," "Wow." The other thing as well. So, anything else before we move into the kind of installations that were there or that are there right now?
No, I just think it's a fantastic place.
Yeah, absolutely recommend it. Do it. I would really say if you have a chance, if you're in the Basque Country, and by the way, this is a recurring theme in our podcast in general. Get the tickets in advance because
Yes.
they do sell out. By the time we went on there, we were limited to what times were available, and obviously I think they do a good job of trying to make sure that it doesn't feel overwhelming, the amount of people in there.
No, I think they do an excellent job of that because you are able to enjoy the installations, move through the museum. There was never a time where we felt crowded, or the only thing we had to line up for was this light installation, but it went very quickly. You're allowed 1 minute in there, which it wasn't my favorite, and also you're not supposed to touch the bulbs, which we did.
So we got in trouble. If you go check out our TikTok, the Made in Spain podcast, you will actually see a little video of us inside the installation, and we're just kind of going. I was going. Boop. That was literally the noise we were making.
Yeah, what are we supposed to do with these? And
just in our defense, there's no signs anywhere. These things look like they are designed to be played with. Yeah. So you think, oh, maybe it's interactive, and I just started like touching the bowl, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, the woman opens the door. She goes, "Don't touch the installation." I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
Oh, and we're like, "Oh," but when you do touch it, it lights up.
Yeah, it does light up. So
go figure. I don't know.
Go check out the TikTok. And I do want to mention that going forward, we are doing it today. We are going to be streaming the behind the scenes of the podcast recording on Twitch. So join us for that too. So let's talk a little bit about the installations.
Okay.
I want to warn parents and people with sensory needs and sensory sensitivities that you really do need to be aware of where you're stepping into the Guggenheim, because there are some of the exhibits and the installations that if you have any kind of sensory overload issue, it is extreme.
I would say so. I mean, if you have vertigo, do not go in the permanent installation on the bottom floor. Not that it's so terrible, but in terms of balance, it's just...
At one point, I remember you actually reached out, held my arm and said, "Is the floor moving?"
Yeah. It's like, is it me? Are you dizzy? That's what I said. I'm like, are you dizzy? We both were dizzy. Well, we can talk about that. That installation is called The Matter of Time. So we were discussing what our favorite installation was.
Was that the one by Rafik Anadol?
No.
Oh, no, that's the other one. That's the AI-generated landscapes.
Yeah. So my favorite installation it's called The Matter of Time. It's the permanent installation on the ground floor. It is by American sculptor Richard Serra.
Oh, yeah. So that was the metal one.
The metal. So I think there's 8 or 9 various sculptures. And I mean, I don't know a lot about art to kind of encapsulate what it means, but I do know that they were constructed in Germany, had to be brought in on cranes. They actually, in the construction of it, they managed to put air bubbles in the steel so that it wouldn't be as heavy. It's very interesting.
Thought even when we saw it, the first thing I asked is, this has to be a permanent installation.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are
you
they
can't move it? It's there.
These things.
So,
so heavy.
You enter one, and the woman that we were working with, she said, of course, we walk in, we're like, "Oh, wow, cool." And we were ready to, I don't know, move on to the next thing. She's like, no, you have to go in them. I'm like, okay. So we start walking, thinking, okay, we're walking through this, and it's like, are you dizzy?
Yes.
I said to her, "Are you dizzy?" The floor is flat. You're not walking on an angle. It's just the curvature of the actual walls in there. These steel walls, and it kind of curves almost like a shell.
Yes.
And you kind of walk around. It's like a little maze.
Mm-hmm.
And we in typical fashion, 30 seconds in, we're like, let's turn back.
It's like, where is this leading?
Yeah.
And someone said, no, you have to walk all the way through the end.
This older gentleman, he's like, no, you have to walk to the end. Like, okay, if he can do it, we can do it. So we went. And once you get to the end, it's, again, the floor is flat. It is not on an angle. You feel actually a sense of relief that, wow, you've kind of gone through this great, like, you know, you're a little bit dizzy and yeah, I don't know. It was very, it was an experience. It wasn't just looking at, for example, the Mona Lisa. You know, you stand in line, you're like, come quick, get a picture. I mean, and then you move on and you don't feel anything from it.
There was definitely a lot of feelings involved in that one. I would say, for me, the one with I cannot remember the name of the artist, the one with the colored balls.
Oh, you like that one? Oh, okay.
I liked it, but I think my kind of most shocking one was the Rafik Anadol, the one that merges the AI generated.
Oh, that one, yeah.
So the big screens,
right?
And it was architecture mixed with data, mixed with AI. I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence and what it can do and what it will do. And I think seeing how it was turning all these data points into different things that kept changing, and just it was basically like a huge massive living painting,
right?
And also at the same time blending in some of the architecture from Frank Gehry. I thought that was absolutely unreal.
But you will, if you happen to go in the next few months and the exhibit is still on, you do feel a little bit dizzy in that as well. I mean, they have places where you can sit. People were sitting. I would have sat, but we didn't have. I couldn't find an empty seat actually. And people also sit on the floor along the walls. It's a really super chill place where it is not overrun. I don't know what it's like in July or August, but when we went, it was, I think, perfect.
I believe that towards the middle of this week, because they had the final of the European League, I did hear it was absolutely jam-packed, which I was surprised, but anyway. So,
I was going to say something not very kind, but I'm not going to say it.
We won't say it. Beep!
Not going to say anything,
there
but
you
anyway.
Go. So, we're moving on to our Slice of Life.
Slice of Life. Laura, our Slice of Life was Cheers.
Slice of Life.
Yeah.
Season 3.
What are we drinking? I don't know why we should be shouting about it. It's fantastic.
Is this the discovery of, like, for you, of the Made in Spain podcast so far? From a drink standpoint. And we do love our Made in Spain cocktail.
But this is just so fresh. I don't know how else to say it.
So, you can see, and I don't know if I'm like hallucinating with this, but you can see the bubbles.
Yeah.
A little bit of bubbles.
Tiny. Mm-hmm. And it's very crisp. It's very dry. It's not too so sweet. It has a very distinct flavor. Far different than the gas station wine I drink.
our famous Diamante gas station wine.
You can buy at the gas station, and that's why I call it gas station wine.
There's the Anguilla gas station ice, made famous all around. But this chacoli or chacolina, it's so good. And I don't know what it is, but it's not, let's say, as popular. Like, let's say, for example, yes, obviously in the Basque Country, you go anywhere, they're serving chacoli with your pintxos and all that everywhere. But, like, in general, you have to look for it. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you're not in the Basque region.
I don't think you'd find it.
You do find it, but you have to look for it. Whereas, for example, the albariño from Galicia,
right,
Rías Baixas, all that, that's everywhere.
Find it everywhere.
But this stuff is really, really good.
Well, it's grown with a particular grape from the region, and the grapes are grown on trellises.
Ooh.
So it's not as if you would picture like a vineyard with the like the vines lower. They're actually grown up. I don't know why, but that is, it produces a microclimate. That's what I read for the grapes. The fact that their trellises, I guess, a big cover, the fruit is covered, so it makes its own microclimate, and then you get this. The wine really wasn't recognized with the DOC or the official
Denominación de Origen
for until I think the 80s. So this was just something that was made in people's homes. And once it got an official recognition, it started to be mass produced. And of course, I mean, literally, you just go into any pincho bar and you just say un chacoli. And
Chocolate. And actually, remember that very kind gentleman that was in the bar and he kind of cut ahead of us a little bit, and he all of a sudden realized he cut ahead. He didn't even say it. He actually just went like that, with his finger on, and he goes, "They know what I want here." So I do come here often, and he got a chocolate, and I thought that was so. Just if you're looking for it, if you're listening to us from outside of Spain, it is TXAKOLI, and then either chacolina with an NA at the end,
or sometimes you'll see it with a CH.
Yeah, but in Basque, it's with a TX. Yeah. Which is very non-intuitive. It's not chacoli, but anyway, so chacoli. And we also have a pintxos.
Okay. Well, okay, try it. I made this. Can I just give you a quick history of the... I mean, we're going to talk about pintxos in the next episode, but, you know, I'll save it for that. I'll save the history for that. Why don't I do that? This is... Cheers. This is just a very simple... It's, we're having tuna on bread.
Oh, wow.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's good.
And you know what this pincho is missing?
Hot sauce.
A pincho. Oh. It's missing what the word means. Pincho. It's a little stick.
Yeah. Although
it's so good.
I saw it served like that. They were serving it like that. But okay, we'll talk about it in the next episode.
Oh, so good.
Okay.
Sorry, I was hungry.
You eat. I'm going to talk about the packing. So we are trying to travel on a budget.
Trying. Is a key word.
Trying very hard. We booked the least expensive flights that we could find.
So, how much were the flights?
4 people, €143 from Valencia to Bilbao, including tax.
Mm-hmm.
So, we chose Valencia over Alicante simply because of the flight time. It was a little bit later in the afternoon, which I think worked out really well. And then, of course, there's the old... you know, the game of the suitcase, overhead luggage, has to fit under your seat, or hey. So we decided...
but if we wouldn't have taken any of it, it would have been about 32 euros per person, which is pretty impressive.
Right. I mean, I don't know how you travel without a suitcase for 4 days. It's impossible. But
I think some people can do it. I've seen people... I mean, we can't do it, obviously. Other people can do it. I think, this may sound a little, but I think some men may be able to do it. I don't know. I need like many pairs of shoes. So,
and okay, so we decided that I told my kids too, because they're overpackers. One of them knows who he is. You get 1 suitcase. I don't want to hear any arguing.
Or both.
Yeah, for 2 of them. I don't want to hear any arguing. Deal with yourselves. So they managed to fit everything in, and of course,
hey, we got 1 suitcase to share between us.
Exactly. So we paid for 2 suitcases, which wasn't that bad. Half each. I used those. I don't know, what do they call them? The bags where you use the air pump and you compress it.
So it's like a vacuum packer.
Right, yeah.
And you can just fit a bunch more stuff in your suitcase.
Yes.
So that, I think the packing is important. Flights. If you are flying into either the Basque Country or other places in Spain, and not because we love the airline, but just for tips, Vueling, which is Vueling.
Yeah.
They're a Spanish airline, and it is cheap. It is not... I wouldn't say it's as bad as some of the others. No names named.
Unnamed.
It's not as bad as some of the others, but it is definitely very affordable, and you can see a lot of the country. And again, just be very smart and don't try to, beat the system. If you are taking hand luggage, measure it. That's what I would say.
And for those who carry front backpack and back backpack,
that's not happening.
Yeah, don't try that.
For sure. Clothes packing, as you mentioned about the vacuum and stuff, but I do think, based on all the conversations we had while we were in Bilbao with people, you have to be ready for it to get cold at any time.
Yeah, at any
so
time.
You need a jacket. You need, even if it's summer, you need to bring something with you because it can get very cold very quickly, and it can get very hot very quickly as well.
I borrowed a blazer from you.
Yeah.
And you had a little trench coat, but I would recommend, if it's summer or spring, maybe take a lighter color blazer that you can just throw over a dress, shorts, whatever.
Shopping's really good there as well.
Really good.
So, that's also, something to note, is you can do a lot of really good shopping. And the other thing is shoes.
Shoes, which is, I think, for every woman, the major issue is shoes. Because you, in the back of your mind, you always think, oh, I really want to bring my heels because maybe I'll go out at night. Which,
and by the way, there's a
we
lot of,
never-
we're going to talk in the next episode about, really fancy Michelin star restaurants and stuff. You don't want to go to a Michelin star restaurant to a
trainers.
special occasion in your New Balance trainers or your Nikes or whatever.
No.
So it's understandable to want to pack something a little fancier, but you have to bring flats with you. So we've adopted this. Bring the flats, but with you,
Right.
and then you can just get changed when you get there. It is pointless to try and walk in heels around that city if you don't want to kill yourself.
No, I brought my new cowboy boots.
Yay!
And my trick for that
Shout
is that,
out Brian Seblock.
yeah, I put the clothes inside the boots, so I managed to fit like 6 outfits in.
Nalini was so much more efficient than I.
So yeah, that was my little tip.
So other things around traveling around the actual city of Bilbao and nearby, the subway is very good, very cheap, very intuitive. It's not, hard to get around.
No.
It's a couple of euros per person.
It's much easier actually than taking an Uber. An Uber will be 20 minutes to go a block.
We actually booked several Ubers and canceled them because they would not show up.
Right.
So I actually think we only had one Uber the whole time because they kept canceling.
Yeah.
So, and the taxi drivers are super open to giving you recommendations about where to go, restaurants.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
etc.
your ride finishes and he's still talking. You're like, okay, thank you, bye. And this is a really interesting, I think a really unique tip that we're going to share. And this is from Granada as well as Bilbao. And that is for a relatively affordable price. And this is not if you're podcasting or doing social media. This is even if you're just going as a family trip. Because keep in mind, for us, it might be not so difficult to get on a plane and go somewhere inexpensively. But if you're traveling from far and you really want to preserve your family memories, think about hiring a photographer /
videographer.
Video for 1 hour. And it is affordable.
Yes, and it usually ranges anything between 75 and 180 to 200 depending on the length of time,
right,
the amount of pictures from what we've seen. But we did, like Nalini said, have the experience in Granada, so a shout out to Juliana, and in Bilbao with Olga. And it was great because you don't have to worry about taking pictures. You don't have to worry about, oh, let me hand my phone to some stranger that may run off with it, so that we can all be in the picture.
No, if there's one thing that you spend money on, I would say look at that. So you find the photographers typically, and you.
I actually just go on Instagram or TikTok and go like, let's say, photographer Bilbao,
right,
or photographer Granada, and then you see a bunch of people that show up. You decide, oh, I like these pictures, I like this style. Hey, do you do sessions for social content, or let's say, for example, for family shoots and stuff? Most of them do. I think most photographers are very versatile anyhow, but just ask. And I do think it's a very recommendable thing. Like Nalini said, it's a great memory.
And you don't have to do the work. And they send you the pictures and the video after. You can just keep it as in your, for memories, or print a picture, whatever it is.
They just look way better than if you're trying to figure it out.
And I would also say that it is, it's just an affordable option to in a way to create memories.
Absolutely. All right.
Slice of life. We're done with that.
Sentence of the day.
Okay.
So today's sentence of the day is very short.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 2 words.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to try and figure out what it means.
Oh, gosh.
Don't worry, I did not go with ass. I just got worried I was get ass. Sorry. It's just too complicated. So we're sticking with Spanish. So the sentence is abro melon. So abro.
Open melon.
Open melon.
Okay.
Great. Oh, your Spanish is getting so good. Okay.
No.
So what do you think? So I maybe go ba, 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 and then I go abro melon. Open melon. What do you think it means?
I don't know. That's really hard. Like, things are crazy.
Okay.
That's my answer.
So in English, you would say something like, "I'm about to say something really controversial.
Oh, I see.
I'm about
Okay.
to say something that is like, a bit of a loaded one."
Right.
In Spanish, we would say,
Okay.
"Abro melón."
Wow.
Like, so
okay.
it's like at the beginning, it's like, it's kind of like, hey, heads up, this is about to get a little iffy. So, abro melón. So, it may be something that's like a topic that has a lot of feelings,
Right, right.
emotions, or politics, or
Controversy.
controversy. Abro melón.
Oh, that's a nice one. Cheers to that. I like that
Cheers.
one. It's cute. I can remember that.
Yeah, there you go. 2 words.